Teaching Children to Love Poetry, a creative project by Cameron Meyer. As a homeschool mom of 4 busy young boys, I long for my children to learn to love written and spoken words. It would seem in our American fast-paced culture there might not be time to teach little boys poetry, or to even know why we would want to teach poetry. In our home we follow the educational philosophies of 19th century British educator Charlotte Mason. She had strong feelings of why we should teach our children poetry. She said, "Children should practice reading aloud every day, and their reading should include a good deal of poetry, to accustom him to the delicate rendering of shades of meaning, and especially to make him aware that words are beautiful in themselves, that they are a source of pleasure, and are worthy of our honor, and that a beautiful word deserves to be beautifully said, with a certain roundness of tone and precision of utterance." So where do we begin? Perhaps the most important thing is to start reading poetry when children are very young. Reading something small each day so that children can begin to hear the flow and rhythm of words. Beginning with Mother Goose and simple nursery rhymes is a good place to start. Then moving on to works such as Robert Louis Stevenson's A Child's Garden of Verses and other collections of poems for the very young. Our family's favorite illustrated versions are those by artist Gio Fujikawa. By kindergarten and first grade, we've moved on to other children's collections. Our favorites for this age group have been A. Milne's Now We Are Six and When We Were Very Young. The simple beauty of these poems and the subject matter is really appealing to young children. There are many good collections of poetry for children out there, but the most important thing is to choose poems your children would like and read them with inflection and gusto. You cannot force your children to love poetry, but you can infect them with a love of poetry by your own interest and gentle enthusiasm. Other ideas include choosing seasonal poems to fit the time of year or holiday. These can be found usually in the index of large collections of poems or online. As children get older, choose one poet to focus on for at least 6 weeks at a time, so that children get to know poets and their individual styles. As children age, increase the length of poems that you are reading aloud together, as well as those they will memorize. And you can use the beautiful words and phrasing of good poems as copywork, so that students are copying some of the best of the English language, gaining a foundation which may lead them to write their own poetry one day. Just remember, only after a child's heart has fallen in love with the sound and rhythm of words should poetry be studied in greater detail. One of the most important things we've found in our home is that it's necessary to create a mood of enjoyment when we read poetry. We choose to read poetry outside of our normal homeschool learning times. We do this by reading poetry at lunch nearly every day, almost always outside under the trees. When indoors, we have tea time or a special treat and hot chocolate when we read poetry. And I also let each child choose the poem they love to memorize. Jack is going to recite his poem, Trees, by Joyce Kilmer.
I think of that I shall never see a poem lovely as a tree. Tree is hungry, mouth is pressed against the earth through flowing breast. Tree looks at God of days and lifts her leafy arms to pray. In summer wear a nest of robins in her hair. Upon his nose bosoms lain, and into me lives with rain. Poems are made like fools like me, but only God can make a tree. Good.
As reading requires an inward eye, poetry requires an inward ear. Unencumbered by modern media, our great-great-grandparents had both. They read poetry for pleasure and made a regular meal of their favorites. Is it possible to provide our children with a regular diet of good poetry? Yes. If you read poetry together for just 10 minutes every other day, that adds up to over 30 hours of reading poetry each year. Instilling a love for poetry in the hearts of children can be that simple.